It's Maggie Mulhern, and yes, this is Robert Lobetta, the Robert Lobetta, the Renaissance man in the salon industry. And I say that because you do so many wonderful things. You are a hairdresser, you're an artist, you do photography. What else do you do? What am I missing?
I like to speak to people, I like to lecture, I like to mentor people, I like to grow people, and so therefore I end up telling people what to do. Ultimately, I seem some sort of strange director who just tries to tell everyone what I think they should do. So part of my job is to venture into other areas, like we talked earlier about art. I love my art, it grounds me, it gives me a great flow, but I like everything about this industry to an extent. I started 40 years ago, and somehow this industry, as much as I try and escape it, it's still with me, and it will probably be with me forever.
Well, because it's working. So tell us, when did you start? How did you get into it? How did it all happen for Robert Lobetta?
I think for Robert Lobetta, it was much by luck in a way. I think I stumbled at the right place at the right time with the right people. And I was lucky enough to have opportunities to work in this sector called the editorial sector, which means I was working for the magazines as a freelance, but still affiliated with the salon. What they gave me was the ability to do consumer work, to consumer magazines, and educate myself with the fashion stylists, with the photographers, with the models, and therefore that was at a young age. And I started at 19, thrust into an arena I knew nothing about. So it was sink or swim, but having good mentors, and my first mentor was a man called Ricky Burns, and he was wonderful because he took me under his wing, and guided me stealthily through this minefield that was at that time. And as I began to understand this whole strange world of editorial hairdressing, I began to grow in stature and understand possibly what everyone else may want other than just hairdressing. For me, it was never just hairdressing. It was far more about the overall image, the picture, the lifestyle, and the feeling. And that's what an editorial side gives you, because their pictures don't revolve around hair. It's really about the whole thing. And sometimes I think our industry gets stuck in a bit of a bubble where we just do hair and we forget about everything else. So for me, over the years, I've always ventured into different areas. What can I do? Can I direct a video? Maybe, should be, could be. Can I do pictures? Maybe, should be, could be. But if you don't try, you won't know. So all my life, I've just tried to stretch myself to see what I can do or what I can't do. I have as many failures as I have successes, but I've always felt that the more you try, the more you find out, the more you're going to learn about yourself and how far you can actually grow. Because I don't believe any of us know how good we can be until we hit some failures in our lives. And then we try again and we succeed and we go, oh, that was cool, let me try this now. So I think I've always never been scared of failing. And I think once you adopt that attitude, that's where your growth happens, when you're not scared to actually shy away from something you don't know.
Well, that's interesting that don't fear failure. Do you want to tell us what your biggest failure was or the one that impacted you the most?
I don't know. I think I've had so many different failures, a bit like Einstein. No one actually sees my failures, which is great because I hide them and get rid of them. But they're there and I have to live with them. I could say the wrong thing. I could pick the wrong concept. Recently I decided to do this concept, and after about working on this particular art piece, I'd done it for about 3 months, I looked at it and went, oh dear, 3 months of my life is just down the toilet because this isn't what it's supposed to be. So you have to accept that when you make those mistakes, instead of forcing it upon people and saying, okay, look, this is really cool because I did it. Well, no, it's really bad and I accept it and move on. So I think in hair it's the same thing. You can do a great haircut sometimes, but every so often you're going to do a bad haircut. And you have to accept for everything you are and everything you're not. I'm not always on point. No one can always be on point 24/7. It's not possible.
That's such a great message. All right, so you said a failure. How about your greatest highlight?
I could answer that in many different ways, but if I try to answer it, it denies me the fact of perhaps having a greater success in the future. So I don't want to highlight what once was, because for me, most of the time, whatever once was is gone. Whatever success, whatever failure is behind me. And what I look forward to now is perhaps getting ready for my next exhibition, hopefully September, October, if I can get it done in time. And if that's a success, great. So I'm always trying to look forward. As soon as I've done something, I don't care what it is, whether it's a piece of art, a photograph, a piece of hair, a lecture, when it's finished, I don't want to know about it.
So tell us about that. What is the next step for you? You've been talking about art. Fill us in.
I think art is something I'll never be truly majestic at. I'll never be great at it. I accept that. So I look at it as this is something I love. It's a passion. It's never going to make me a lot of money. I think this industry, I've been with it for 40 years, and it's a great industry. I would like to think that I still have some part to play in it. I still don't know what that part is yet. So at the same time, as much as I'm the age I am, I'm still trying to grow and learn of what I have, what part I should be playing next. I have the feeling, the inclination that a lot of my strengths at this moment are coming from mentoring and helping other people, which I get great pleasure from. It's a bit like being I often determine myself as almost like the soccer team manager or the coach, and I have this team of people, and I've got to get this team of people to be really good so they can beat the other team. So for me, that's what gives me pleasure. I think I like to pick, I don't know how to make this sound correct, but when you pick a fight, you have to come up to terms of getting ready for the fight, and that ability to show your best side of you at that one moment in time when it really matters is important to me.
You brought up mentorship a few times. How does one find a mentor, or how does one get to be mentored by you?
That's a good question. I think that's the stumbling situation. People often approach me, and for some unknown reason, I just say yes out the blue, and I do it. And I think it started a few years ago in Australia, where there was this young couple, and they said to me, "Would I mentor them?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" I didn't think anything about it. And then gradually, as time went on, I did it with more people, and I realized over the years I've probably been doing it all my life and never really sort of took stock of it. And I think it's great fun when you do it, because as much as I'm mentoring, I'm learning at the same time, because each time I'm giving a piece of advice, someone who is, shall we say, 25 years old, or like my daughter or my son, will give something back that I'm not ready for, and I go, "Oh, I didn't think about that. That's really interesting." So there's always two sides to mentorship. And that's why I think both sides grow immensely from. It's not just a one-sided thing. I grow from it as well.
My last question is, you've led a very balanced life, that you do have a family and you have your art, your career, you travel. How do you make that happen?
I think you just do it somehow. You don't take a situation where one leads over the other. Everything sort of resembles and flows into one another, and you take things as they come. I tend to look at things from one day to the next, and I don't actually premeditate or pre-plan anything. So if something's ahead of me, and I just take that on board the next day, and that's what I've got to do. So each day for me is, I don't think about what I've got to do the next day. I just get on and do it. So therefore the balance around me works, simply because if it's my family, or if it's my wife, or if whatever goes on at that moment, I adhere to.
So great seeing you, Robert. Thank you so much. Have fun tonight. He's here. He's a big judge for the Sebastian What's Next Awards. And thank you for giving us this time.
Thank you. Thank you.